what's up fantasy fans? As always, I'm Shay from the channel Zachary Shay, and today I'm going to be reviewing a book that was not even on my radar. I did not expect, and this was my book of the month for last month and a contender for one of my favorite books of the year, and honestly a contender for one of my favorite standalone fantasy novels of all time, and I'm talking about The Master of Whitestorm by Janny Wurts.
Quiet, fool! Haldeth felt fear, cold as the touch of bare steel against his neck. The forward oarsman will kick in your ribs if he wakes and hears you. I was named Corandir, and I'm getting off. The words left no chink for argument. Corandir flung off his cloak. He glanced at his nervous companion and said, "Loan me your torch. I'm going to take Whitestorm from Seondeed." "Weak as Seondeed," yelled Corandir. He dropped the torch and flung both hands over his ears. The endless rumbling boom, which followed all but shook the life from his body. He sank to his knees, curled with his face against the bone of the king dragon's skull. Still the thunder pealed. The brimstone smell of scorched rock wafted down the shaft. Sweat dripped from his brow and heated air stung the linings of his nostrils. Huddled and helpless before a violence that paralyzed thought, Corandir closed his eyes. The warmth of high summer cracked the ice from the cliffs of Whitestorm. Frost left the ground for the first time in 15 decades, and life reawakened in the thaw seemed all the more vibrant for its dormancy. Grasses raised blonde heads to the breeze and spread a living, sun-burnished carpet over the heights. The close-woven boughs of thorn forest burst into blue-violet blossom, then shed scented showers of petals to unveil shiny black-green foliage. Overnight, White Rock Head transformed from the frigid, wind-ridden hell of an elemental's caprice to a wide place between sea and sky, where the seasons turned with savage, unspoiled grace. He assumed risks because he did not care, and because he cared too deeply.
So this follows a character type that to me is very similar to a Geralt of Rivia, Guts from Berserk. You'd think the mercenary, somebody who takes on odd jobs, the guy who does the impossible tasks. In this world, that role falls to Corandir, the Master of Whitestorm. Or, well, when we first meet Corandir, he is not actually the Master of Whitestorm. He is a slave, and you follow the characters of Corandir and his friend, or fellow slave at the time, Haldeth. The journey that these two men go on, it spans decades, so much time, and there's so much that happens, but the story begins and we get these two slaves. I believe Janny originally wanted to print these different parts of this book as serials. It was supposed to be in magazines. I don't know if she actually did print them in magazines or not, but I know that that was the original goal, was to print them in different magazines. These would all be short fiction that would tie into an overall greater narrative. And I think you have to go into it with that mindset that these were originally envisioned as pieces of short fiction. If you've read The Last Wish by Andrzej Sapkowski, you have all those little short pieces of short fiction that all come together to make The Last Wish. This does that so much better, but it's a very similar vein. Nothing against the Witcher series. This feels like a collection of short stories and a novel at the same time, with none of the trappings of a collection of short stories, in that it feels disjointed. It feels like a bunch of jobs that this mercenary is going on, but there is a narrative goal at the end of all of it. These are not just exciting and entertaining quests. They all serve a purpose, and they serve to get you familiar with this world of the 11 kingdoms. The 11 kingdoms of, I forget, Aerith. You know, these jobs do more than that. They show you so much about this world, and you know, there's a lot I don't want to reveal too much to the reader, but I will say Corandir reminds me so much of Arathon from the Wars of Light and Shadow series. He's a character that you don't always understand exactly what's going on in his head, but there is so much compassion there. There's so much empathy there, and this is really a book about compassion. I think Malazan is a book is a series that's thrown around a lot when you say, oh, it's about compassion. And that's absolutely true. That's why Malazan is my favorite series of all time. Though Wars of Light and Shadow is coming up on its tail, but Malazan is my favorite series. And this book has so many similar themes as Malazan. I think Malazan readers would find a lot to enjoy here. I think Witcher readers would find a lot to enjoy here. Conan the Barbarian fans, Conan the Barbarian and Witcher fans that have grown up a little bit and want a little bit more depth from their characters. Not to say Geralt of Rivia is a very deep character, but I think Corandir beats him. I think Corandir is just such a nuanced character, and his journey is... I honestly will reread this. Like, I know I will. And I don't think anyone online has been quite as positive about this book as I am, which makes me wonder, like, is this actually a objective 5-star, or is it more objectively like a 4-star and it's my subjective 5-star? I'm not sure. I do know that this book was absolutely made for me, and I think that the prose were very well done. I think the themes were perfectly explored. It is a tragic but also beautiful tale. I think this is a 5-star read. I'm trying to look at it objectively, and it's like, no, I think everything that Janny tried to do in this novel, she did successfully. I think Haldith was an amazing character. I think Corandir was an amazing character. And oh my gosh, Ithariel, a character that comes in about halfway through this book, I thought she had so much grace. I thought she was such an amazing female character. And I've heard this said about Janny Wirtz that aside from the Empire trilogy, which I haven't read, she doesn't write a lot of powerful female characters. I don't know why that expectation is being put on her and her alone. Nobody says that about male authors when they don't have powerful female characters. I guess it's because she's a woman. But between Alara and Ithariel in this book, Alara from Wars of Light and Shadow and Ithariel from this novel, she writes amazing female protagonists, and also the romance she writes in this book is absolutely beautiful. This is a very concise, this is a very lean story. Everything on the page was needed, and there's no bloat at all. And I'd say, I would have liked more time with their relationship. It's not like it's missing. Everything you need is there. I just loved it so much that I would have loved to spend more time there. But, I have no notes on this one. This is a 5-star read. It is my book of the month, and it is just an absolute banger of a book. I mean, this is exactly what I was hoping for whenever I opened up The Last Wish by Andrzej Sapkowski. After I finished Witcher 3 The Wild Hunt, amazing game, by the way, I wanted a story about a stoic mercenary that is compassionate, that is kind, that there's more to him than just the guy who will do the jobs for the money. That's what I got with Corandir. And I wasn't sure if I was getting that at first, but the further you get into the book, the more you understand him as a character, and the more you grow to love him and to admire him and the people around him. The characters of Corandir and the characters of Ithariel and Haldith, they all feel in their own way larger than life, but incredibly human. Haldith especially is very human. At first, I thought he was just going to be the lens that we see Corandir through, because like I said, she keeps Corandir kind of far from the reader. You don't get his perspective until way later in the book, because she doesn't want to overextend and show you what's going on in his head, because it would have ruined a lot of the reveals. So I thought Haldith was just a character that we can view Corandir through. He has his own story to tell. He is not just a pair of eyes to watch Corandir and to watch Ithariel. He is his own person. Those are really the 3 main characters of this book, and I think that they are all superbly written. You can see echoes of what would become mainstays in the Wars of Light and Shadow. The White Circle feels very much like the Fellowship of Seven in their own way. Arathon and Corandir have a lot of similarities. I think Ithariel and Alara have a lot of similarities. Some of the names seem very similar, but this is a different world than Athera. There's were leopards, there's dwarves, there's elementals. It's more high fantasy than I think Athera is high fantasy, but in a much more mapped out way, whereas this felt more classical fantasy and had a lot of classical elements into it. Athera feels classical, the Wars of Light and Shadow feels classical, but the Paravians and the different races of Athera are so different than what we usually see. This is a little bit more I don't want to say run of the mill, but a little bit more standard of fantasy. But what she does with those tropes is absolutely brilliant. Janie Wertz is 3 for 3 right now, going on 4 for 4. I'm about a third of the way through Ships of Merior. I had to slow it down a little bit because of this. Sometimes I'm in the mood for a self-contained story, and I am enjoying Ships of Merior immensely, but this grabbed me and would not let go, partially due to Simon Preble's exemplary narration. He absolutely killed it. Immense respect for him to bringing these characters to life and doing that. He just did an amazing job on the audiobook. And yeah, this overall as a reading experience is one of my best reading experiences of the year. It looks like 2025 is just the year that Janie Wertz wins my book of the month every month. Potentially that may be what we're looking at, because I think just her writing is perfectly made towards my reading tastes. And Master of Whitestorm, as a cohesive story, may be my favorite. I don't know. I really love The Gallant and I really love Curse of the Mistwraith. It's like choosing between 3 10 out of 10s, 11 out of 10, 6 out of 5 stars type reads. But just something about the self-contained nature of it, and she nailed the ending on this one. It was very melancholic, very tragic, but not entirely void of hope. You know, she is able to tell dark tales, a lot like Robin Hobb and Steven Erikson. She tells dark stories that are tragic, that are heart-wrenching, but never does she ever veer into nihilism, into just hopelessness, you know? And I do admire her writing for that, and Hobbs and Erikson's, because I'm not a nihilistic reader. I can dabble in grimdark sometimes, but if something is just doom, death and darkness and gloom and death, and it's not for any purpose, then it's at the point where I'm losing enjoyment. But that's not the case with Master of Whitestorm. And yeah, let me know if you've read Master of Whitestorm. If you have not read this book, please check it out. If you like The Witcher, if you like Conan the Barbarian, if you like that, but you want a little bit more of a nuanced approach to that, not to say that The Witcher isn't nuanced, not to say that there aren't nuanced takes on Conan the Barbarian, but I'm saying Corandir is a very, very well done version of this trope, I guess. But, you know, with it being a standalone, this is a very contained story, and you could probably read Master of Whitestorm in a few days, and the amount of time it takes to invest in this story versus the payoff you get, you just can't get it anywhere else. Absolutely amazing book. Peace.